Hello, everybody. Seth and Veda here with the Integrative Science and Water podcast. Oh, sorry, the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast. Getting it right. Tonight is going to be a really interesting episode because we're going to talk about water quality and we're going to talk about the different perspectives of water quality. Whereas the most kind of conventional perspective would be to look at water based on water analysis, i.e. chemical testing, water testing, bacteria testing, things of that nature. We're going to talk about a different perspective, which is the structural integrity of water, which is essentially how the water is structured, the crystallographic structure of it, and how that is a determining factor for water quality. So I'm really excited about tonight's episode, and I'm going to hand this over to my amazing friend, Veda Austin.
Thank you, Seth. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, for the last 2 years, I've actually been studying the integrity of water. And what do I mean by integrity? Well, actually, there's various different ways to view water. And I think that there are characteristics that can be observed where water in its most healthy state, and I say healthy because I've developed this very interesting crystallographic technique to show what spring water looks like straight out of the spring that may have only gone through one pipe or no pipes, and it forms a very specific hexagon type of structure. And then going through that, the more right angles and piping water goes through, it appears to degrade that structural integrity. So it goes from a hexagon to a flower to a leaf to grass to lines to dots, which I'll share with you in just a moment how that looks. But I believe that, yes, you can look at the analysis. You want to make sure that there aren't, any nasties in your water. But when you think about water itself, water holds what it picks up. It holds what's put in it. But water itself has its own structural kind of mind, its own structural integrity. So what I've seen is that water from a tap, from a municipal system full of fluoride, full of heavy metals and all these kinds of things, can take a structural leap when consciousness is applied, when intention or prayer is applied, when the use of a singing bowl is applied.
Amazing.
But it doesn't take out the nasties that might be in it. What's so interesting is that the water itself, less stuff that's in it, can structurally change and improve just as easily as it can start to degrade. Through piping is a big one, through lots of right angles. So it's very interesting. I'll share with you, hopefully, maybe you can share it,
I'll put it up
what I'm
here.
talking about.
Okay, so we're on page 1 right now.
Cool. So the top 4 photographs, the very first one you'll see, I say excellent health. So when I think about water, I have a very emotional connection to water. And so I have actually just given it emotional references. So water in its most healthy state forms this beautiful floral kind of ferny hexagon. And you can see that it's very silvery in color, so the color is also part of this.
Wow.
And then after it's gone through a few right angles, through piping, you see it starts to take the shape of...
That'd be good health as it's...
That's the good health one. That's
Okay.
Still good. And that is still forming something natural, which looks a little bit like a leafy flower.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it goes through more piping, which is around six pipes, 7 pipes, we're looking at what looks like a leaf. And then at 8 to 10 pipes, it's looking like grass, which is where it's really starting to look stressed.
Wow.
Where it says feeling pain, that is the first one below excellent health.
Yeah.
That is what I typically see in municipal tap water. Structurally, it's not making form, it's lots and lots of lines. You'll notice that the 3 beside that are all unnatural. So tortured and brain dead. Those two were water that was exposed to a 4G, 5G capable tower. So I put the tortured one but right beside the tower for 15 minutes, and the brain dead one was beside the tower for half an hour.
Oh,
and you can see that it completely changed the structural integrity. And these two results, tortured and brain dead, were taken from spring water that was in excellent health. The next one that you see, flatline, is essentially what I would personally term as water that really is not alive anymore, and that's from water that was microwaved for 1 minute.
Oh my gosh!
Which is really really disturbing.
Wow.
So then, if you go to the next one, which is a little bit more
page 2, that would be.
Yeah, which is a little bit more cheerful, thankfully.
Oh yeah, look at that.
You can take the kind of dead water, essentially. Not that you can kill water; it will eventually just evaporate and recycle again. But then there are various different ways to begin to improve it from the worst of the worst. So you can see its heartbeat returns. That's as it starts to form lines again. And that is from using infrared light. Circulation returns from having used a singing bowl. And memory returns from having used infrared light filtered through silk and actually also put into a singing bowl. So why I say memory returns, as you can see, there's a tiny little flower in that image, which is the memory of its original blueprint as such. And then below that, you see clarity returns. And now we're talking the kind of quantum leap that I was suggesting that water can do through conscious intention. So the clarity is returning as love is being sent to the water, as intention and prayer is being sent to water. Freedom returns as a Hawaiian prayer. The love received, actually, this photo was taken from water which was really destroyed, and I think I counted 65 people from around the world all sent love to my petri dish of very sad water, and it changed structure so dramatically that because I think it felt, and I can't help doing this. I know this is totally an unscientific way to look at water, and I'm fine with that. But I have a connection with water where I connect to it emotionally, and I believe that it responds in a way of which I can connect to, which is like I can relate to what it feels to be loved. And so that does change the way I feel from feeling totally unseen and hurt. If someone comes to me and helps heal me and gives me love, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to change. Something changes inside of me just as it changes inside of water. And then you see that health is returned. And health is returned purely because from what I'm seeing, all these different modalities, all these different ways in which we connect to water help it to be seen and heard. The two very important things that we need to feel appreciated as human beings. I think that it has found a kind of way of expressing how it feels through crystallography, how it's being treated, and gratefully showing us a way in which it can improve through intention, through vortexing. Also, where are we? I've done one of these that you can't see, but where a vortex machine was used, and it also helped water to come out of that kind of flatline state. And it's very helpful for some people that might not have a vortex machine to understand that the power of their juicer is creating a vortex.
A blender. Do you want me to take this down now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
All right, let me see. That's a great point. So if somebody, because there's like really expensive vortexing machines on the market, and they work really well. But it's true, you can take a blender or something like that, Pour the water in
Yeah,
it.
not a jet juicers do a different thing. I meant blender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would you say at a slow, like a very low rate, is what would be best?
Yeah. I mean, I think that whatever, like a slow to medium, is still good. It's still creating the vortex. I think it's a gentle ease into the vortex is always nice. But
Mm,
to be honest, I mean, I also think stirring, just the
yeah.
stirring in like the shape of an eight or round and round and round the other way. I mean, even that is a very simple way to help like bring your water alive. There's lots of ways and things we can do that don't have to cost a fortune.
See, what I love about that too, it's almost like by doing it gently. See, this is I just want to emphasize a really important point to all the listeners here. Veda is getting ready to release a body of work that is so profound, that so definitively changes the way we see ourselves and the world. And it's completely in alignment with what would be termed as quantum physics, which is essentially, quote unquote, modern science has evolved to an amazing degree. It's phenomenal. But the scientific method is kind of like only believe it if you can see it, which leaves it makes it so that there's no room for invisible, unseen, moving sources of energy, which is another way to say spirit, right? There's this unifying field of energy. So Veda's work is literally taking that quantum perspective, which has been totally proven by quantum science now. Quantum physics has proven definitively that there's a unified field of conscious energy emanating from everybody. It's around everything and it connects all of us. And it's a major missing link because when we don't know about it, we're disempowered. We're lost. We feel disconnected. We don't know who we are. But when we get into a habit of becoming aware of this field and feeling it, then our own memory, our deeper memories, start to return back to us. And why this is so important in relation to Veda's work is because it's physical proof to show that the types of thoughts we have, the types of energies that we're exposing ourselves to, whether it's natural energies that are healing and gentle, or if it's man made, highly kinetic unnatural electric devices, these are all having a major visual impact on the water crystallography on the water crystals that she's photographing. So when we take that and we correlate it to our own water in our own body, the water crystals of our own body, the water that we're drinking, and when we stir it, like she's saying, I would say the next thing is like I love the idea of stirring it gently because, turning on a blender is great. You're going to get that thing going. But when you're stirring it gently, it's like you're putting your own energy into it and you have a moment to calm down, to be at peace, and to really think and feel what type of energy you would like to imbue into that water. And that's a big deal. And that's also what quantum physics shows us, that the quality and the nature of our thoughts and feelings, which are electromagnetic in nature, has an effect on our well-being and the world. So when we get into that space and we affect the water that we're drinking and the water in our body, hallelujah. Sorry, not to go off on a tangent here, but I wanted that's
It's my
what
kind of tangent. That's fine.
but that's
But
why your work is so important because it's visual proof that what we're thinking and what we're feeling is having a dramatic and super powerful, beautifully powerful effect on the water we're drinking.
yeah, well, I think also beauty comes from inside, and if you can drink beautiful water, it's also going to make you feel and be more attractive on the outside as well as on the inside. So, I mean, there's all different types of waters out there, and I think each one holds its own kind of information. And I've been several years ago. I had a business whereby I was very interested in natural beauty products, and I found that actually the kind of water, starting with the way in which our skin health looks as well, is very, very, very dependent on the kind of water that we drink. And I think that there is the big difference between quantity and quality. So a lot of people, they have all kinds of issues with eczema, psoriasis, acne, these kinds of things happen. And I observed that because I think, as you know, I had a wellness center for some years, and I had my own experience with water healing my body. And so I started giving this particular water to people with a lot of skin issues and other kind of issues. And they started to find that their skin was healing up and that their eyesight was improving and that, the skin texture was improving, and they started to feel that they were looking younger. And I can personally testify to that, and that I noticed a huge change not only on inside of me but outside of me. My skin started to become more elastic, fuller, and it wasn't that I was drinking more water, but I was drinking quality water straight out of a spring. I mean, we all have different types of water and it responds to us differently. But what I found was that, these people, the trials that I had them on, they were only drinking a litre in the morning and a litre at night of this water. But after 3 weeks of doing that, it was as if their body had had a full, whole kind of cellular turnaround. And they noticed that their skin issues had all cleared up, many other issues had cleared up. And the only thing they had done different was drink quality water and stopped drinking water from a tap. And so over and over and over again now, I have seen that people become less thirsty when they're properly hydrated with the right kind of water, and that actually they're getting the right minerals. Their body is able to come back into a balance, which allows the water to act. Actually, I'll digress slightly. A very interesting thing I did notice is that a lot of people that I worked with had some weight issues. And that they said, "Oh, look, I'm drinking so much water, and it's just like, I'm still like thirsty, and I'm not losing any weight." And so much about being overweight is about having a lot of acid stored in the fat. We have acid to trap and store fat. And so if you're drinking a lot of acidic water, then that can be part of that problem. And so what they found is when they started to drink the water that I have been drinking now for so many years, its pH is actually 9.9 out of the ground. I'm not saying that pH is the be-all or end-all. Quality means quality structure, and that's so important. I actually believe that's almost the most important. But this was one of the characteristics of this water. And it seemed to work as like a water blaster and actually help to flush the retained acidic water out of the fat. And these people started losing weight, having really done no change in what they had been doing for the last 3 months. It helped to kind of get their body back into a state of balance enough for it to go, okay, we're safe to let some of this go. We're going to release some of this acid now. Everything else is starting to come into working order, because I believe we are a liquid water system. And if our system is working on the right fuel, it's going to work the most efficiently.
With water being structured water being at the top, like for Tourmaline Spring, it's a neutral pH, but it's really low in deuterium, but it comes out of this granite body that is having, a crystalline granite body that is having some kind of effect on the water, where it is just a highly structured water. I mean, people who drink directly out of the source feel like they got an electric charge. So this is the difference, between we're talking about waters that have these rare waters that have these natural charges in them because they've been cultured, you could say, by the earth. They've been literally processed naturally by Mother Earth, but imbued with whatever kind of bedrock and the frequency, because going back to quantum physics now, everything is frequency, everything is energy. So that is going to have a quantum effect on the water we're drinking. So where obviously you and I are, so grateful, and we're rare in that we have access to these types of waters. But what about people who don't have access to these kinds of waters? What can we suggest that will help
Yeah.
them? We mentioned stirring it earlier, spinning it, vortexing it. What are some
Well,
things?
yeah. I mean, you want to make sure that the water is also free from heavy metals if you can, free from fluoride, because that's going to start creating more issues than anything else. So, there's various different ways, like a carbon filter is very common, but the less processed, the better. I'm personally, and I'm a lot of, I mean, this isn't for everybody, but personally, I'm very interested in natural ways of making water come alive again. So, from what I mean, I'm a big fan of Victor Schauberger. He talked about flow forms and vortexing and the way in which water naturally moves. So, I think that the very simple method is if you can get the best water you can, even just I've seen there's still a structural difference when you filter water. Even just filtered water, if that's what you've got, that's what you've got. So we'll work with that, and you can start stirring it. If you want to make it more alkaline and you don't want to get an ionizing machine, personally, and I hope no offense to any ionizing machine people out there, it's not my preference. I understand that ionizing machines do unnaturally up the pH of water, and they create dissolved hydrogen, which is actually probably more of the benefit from ionized water. However, it's an unnatural process, and it's also unstable. Generally, it's an unstable process whereby the pH starts dropping very quickly, and I've measured that myself multiple times from various different machines. However, if that's what you love and it's working for you, then that's fine. But it's not something that is what water would experience naturally at all. Is not a natural kind of process of electrocution that water would go through. So my preference is that you let it go through some kind of filter. If you want to bring the pH up, adding just half a teaspoon of baking soda to it is going to bring it up to around an 8.2, which is around about the pH of baking soda. Baking soda itself has certain properties as well, which can be very helpful. It's cheap.
Yeah.
It's easy to do, and if you do that even just once a day, it can be very beneficial. You can also,
but I love how you're
add
emphasizing that purity first, because pH, if you're drinking tap water and it's loaded with chlorine, PFPs, phthalates, everything that could potentially be in it, and you're adding a pinch of baking soda into it to make it more alkaline, you're still taking in the nasties, as you say. You're taking in all of those chemical dioxins and toxins and everything that you don't want to put in your body. So I love that you emphasize that, because that's really important.
It's really important, because you have to start from a good from the right space. So I mean, people like reverse osmosis. There's all these different ways of getting water to be clean.
Yeah.
But water itself is separate to what it holds. So,
by that you mean memory. Water is separate than what it holds. Is that what you mean by the memory of the water?
No, I'm talking about what it physically picks up along the way.
All right.
So, I mean, it is the carrier. It's the ultimate solvent. So it's like taking on anything. It's like always picking up information, whether that be intentional thought or it is just from the mineral content it comes as it makes its way through all of the crystalline infrastructure, or if it's coming from an aquifer. But then it's easy to there's not, there are lots of solutions out there if you don't have access or you can't afford. That's the sad thing, that we've put, some people have made water so unaffordable for so many people. And yet there is a certain, that's what I love about what you do. There is an integrity that you hold when you offer this water to the people that would like to buy it. And I think that there's a difference between raping and pillaging,
Yeah.
which a lot of big water companies are doing, compared to actually honoring the water source the way you do and offering it to people with intention. That feels very different. It's the difference between taking and receiving. And so, that's what I would love to see, much, much more of that. However, I often think about people in Africa who have to walk for miles and miles, to get water which is filthy. And the way in which they see that water, I can guarantee you, we hardly would ever think about water in the same way that they do. Because to them, that is life-giving, even though partly sometimes it's actually just filled with things that are going to kill them. And so there's these wonderful projects that people are doing out there to help them get clean water. Because that part, like we talked about and stressed about, getting the water clean, so that is important. And it seems so sad that we add all of these things to chemically clean water to make it safe. And I understand, I do understand, we want to be safe, we don't want to get sick, all these kinds of things, but that's where education comes in.
Well, it creates a difference
through
because they're treating for bacteria and all these quote unquote living things, some of which can be very deadly. But at the same time, you're making it into a chemical cocktail by adding these things into it. So, okay, you're not going to get some kind of, bacterial infection, but you're going to get, the low dosage homeopathic exposure to whatever chemicals are added into it. And that's sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it kind of comes back again. People need to drink water, and some people just have what they have.
Yeah.
So even if you have water which, isn't the best in the world, it's going to be better than some countries.
Yeah.
And so I think holding, even if you just hold intention, my work has certainly shown to me over and over and over again that the power of intention and connection can make a change, at least to the structure of water. And when we're talking structure, it's a kind of a big blanket statement. A lot of people, they don't know exactly what that really means. And there's various different ways to look at that. But, sorry, my phone is going.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Making noise.
This is the real world.
And so, the water as it's going through piping loses an electron. So therefore, there's I think it's 10 electrons that a molecule has. And so as it's going through these right angles, it actually loses one. And so it's no longer in the same structured order as it was. So that's why it starts to take worse and worse and worse shape. Also, as water, you can see that there is that Gerald Pollack talks a lot about structured water, fourth phase water, and that is the area of that I'm very, very interested in. So he's looking at the kind of water inside of our cells, and our body converts H2O into H3O2. It converts it into this different type of water, which has a higher pH, an electrical, a negative charge, and it has different kinds of properties. It's more hydrogen than regular water. But we use that regular water to convert it and make it into the special type of water. But that special type of water can actually be found out in water outside of the body in very small amounts. And that can be measured. And he talks a lot about glacial water, for example, as potentially having this fourth phase, because it's in this in-between state. And the in-between state is what I'm most interested in, the state between liquid and ice, or Jerry's talked about the state of melting as well.
Gerald Pollack, by the way, just for everybody who's listening, Gerald Pollack is a preeminent scientist in water. and he's coined what Veda's talking about. He's coined a term called easy water, which means exclusion zone water, which is essentially that. It's that almost like where you see surface tension area, like in a cup of water, where it forms on the top. There's like the molecule. It's more concentrated on that little top area, giving water its like surface properties, kind of, right? Is that what you'd say? It's a higher concentration?
It excludes all solids as well. So it's kind of like the positive and the negative, they separate. Without going into the real science, we'll leave that to Jerry. And if you're interested, go and look at Google him, and you can watch his TED Talk. Jerry is amazing.
And we might have him on here someday if the water gods bless us with his presence.
Yes, absolutely. He's such a lovely man. I'm sure he would be honored. And so, but my point is that you can find this kind of water in nature, and water that's been under a lot of pressure, like if it's deep down, coming deep down from like a really deep aquifer, the more pressure, the more likely it is to have EZ, which is, an important way, a reminder that there are different qualities and types of water out there as well. And that science is starting to be able to see and show different types of water have different types of properties.
See, that's amazing, because Tourmaline Spring is a high elevation source, and that water is being pushed up by massive pressure.
Well, also you said it's low in deuterium, and there's a whole big thing to say that deuterium depleted waters are really, really good for your health. So, I think that there are different types of waters out there, and they resonate really for different people. And lots of people find that they're really, really, really kind of happy with one water that really seems to work for them. It's interesting, actually. A friend of mine was over from Fiji, and she's just crazy about Fiji water. And for me, I found a kind of water that really works, for me from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if we are naturally aligned with waters from where we're born, where we came from. It's kind of an interesting link when you think about that. So,
we definitely are. We're acclimated to the foods, to the environments, to all, like, everything that there's certainly some kind of acclimation type of process that happens when we're steeped or quote unquote cultured in a certain area, for sure.
I think intention is the most important thing, and if you appreciate the water that's in front of you and you connect with it, I think it still has something to tell you. It's going into a new structuring water system, which is the body. So if your body and your mind are connected and actually in a kind of harmony, then the water you drink is going to be structured by you.
Yeah.
You are the one that is going to define how that water behaves in your body, what information it can share, how it heals and helps your healing.
Well said. Look, I'll share one last thing and then we're going to close this episode, but one thing that I can say, which ties in, it's not even quantum science anymore. It's just like if you go to the HeartMath Institute, heartmath.org, and you learn about heart-brain coherence, we now know that the heart produces a massive electromagnetic field. So when you take water and you get into a state of gratitude, you get into a so thankful that I'm alive type of mentality, and you put that water near your heart, that will have a profound effect. Now, it might sound weird to some people, but it's something to practice. If you do this, try drinking water, not doing that, then try drinking water after you've done that, and slowly begin to observe the subtle sensory perceptions that you will eventually have if you do it with enough practice. Because the heart produces a lot of wisdom. It produces a lot of energy. And just the field of your heart, as we know with all of Veda's work, like we saw in those beautiful slides that she showed earlier, water that went from being totally natural to being totally destroyed and then being resurrected again through the power of intention, of love, of all these elevated states of beings by human beings who care enough to do that, can bring it right back to life and maybe to a new level that we don't even know yet. And that's the beauty of all this. It's like Veda's work brings the visual proof of the power of our highest or higher elevated or greater intentions. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. And Veda, thank you for coming on and sharing your amazing wisdom. We're going to keep getting into some really powerful topics. So we urge everybody to like this post if it's a post, share it, whether it's going to be on YouTube in video format, there's going to be an actual podcast, share the audio, tell everybody about it, because the mission here is greater than any single one of us. It is a time in the world where we now, more than ever, need to get as many people into their heart so they can start producing intentions that are in alignment with their greater self, with their holistic expression of what they have the potential to be. And if enough of us do that individually and collectively together, that is going to have a profound impact upon our current and future world. So, thank you again, Veda. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Seth.
Tune in next time. We love you guys. You do it really well. I got to practice. Good night. Thank you for listening to the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast with Veda Austin and Seth Pruzansky. If you'd like to know more about Veda Austin, please go to vedaaustin.com. To learn more about Seth and Tourmaline Spring, go to tourmalinespring.com and I'mAwakeNowWhat.com. You'll also be able to find copies of this podcast and back issues at all of the websites we listed above. Thank you.